Today we are marking World Press Freedom Day in the midst of a media climate that's been criticized for its treatment of journalists. According to Newzroom Afrika, the constitutionally protected freedom of expression within the media is being increasingly eroded by the decreasing number of journalists in newsrooms. Let's talk more about this with the Executive Director of the Freedom of Expression Institute, Samkelo Mokhine. A very good afternoon to you, sir, and welcome to the program. Let me begin with your assessment of press freedom in South Africa and the broader African continent today.
Definitely there has been a lot of gains in media freedom in South Africa, Tembegile. We've got an increasing culture of investigative journalists, and we've seen the benefits of that culture at the Zondo Commission. We are not exposed to killings and disappearances like in other parts of the continent, like Somalia or Mozambique or Zimbabwe. And yes, we operate in a relatively free environment as compared to other countries. So those gains are things to be proud of, but there are concerns as well.
What are those concerns? What would you say are the greatest threats to press freedom in South Africa?
Yes, the threats and attacks of journalists online, those are increasing and are a matter of concern. And the issue of politicians also joining the fray and attacking politicians. We've seen how the EFF dealt with the late Karima Brown, how the ANC dealt with the SABC office and the CDFM in the Free State, accusing them of costing them the elections. And we've seen the attacks that the late Sunet also endured before she passed on. But the biggest and most disconcerting one is the issue of the attacks and threats on female journalists and the gendered aspect to it, where when it comes to female journalists, the issue of rape crops up quite frequently, that will do this, will kill you, and will rape you. And that's something that must be hugely discouraging for females that are studying journalists and are preparing to come into journalism.
Let's talk about how the fact that most of that abuse occurs online, right? How much of a complication does that present as far as dealing with those threats? Because often these are tweets that come from anonymous pages, anonymous profiles on Twitter.
Yes, the issue of anonymity is one, but as well the size. I mean, you've got one tweet that's exposed to like literally millions, thousands or millions of people. And the speed at which people can retweet and pass on, whether it's a WhatsApp message, is something that, you know, has never been dealt with. And it's such a concern that the current global conference on press freedom in Uruguay is dealing with it, specifically the issue of how digitally journalists are exposed.
So another thing that comes up whenever one talks about threats against journalists, critics will say that the issue with the media in South Africa is that it does not want to introspect and believes itself to be above reproach, and that's why people have taken a quote-unquote radical stance in calling out journalists or being as harsh as they've been. How shall we say, how reflective is the South African press of its own conduct?
Yeah, I mean, we can't say journalists do not make mistakes, but we have a system whereby there's the press council that people can report these matters to, and the press council can deal with them. But you do get people that, in essence, just take action without going through the channels that we agreed. Unless you complain that, no, the channels don't work, or I went to the press council and they didn't assist me, then maybe you might be justified to say this is the reason why I did this. But we do not have people that are saying, I have decided to take this action because the press council did not assist me. So I think unless we agree on another a way in which we want to deal with complaints against the media, we have to stick to the rules and make sure that those rules work and work best. If they don't work, let's try and make sure that we tweak them or we remedy them so that they become effective.
You mentioned the press ombudsman is there. You've got the BCCSA for broadcast as where you would generally go for checks and balances, right? But how do we better improve the trust relationship between communities and the media, because it has been eroded?
Yes, it definitely has been eroded, and I think you are dealing here with a double-edged sword. You have shrinking newsrooms and journalists becoming a smaller and smaller pool, while more is expected of them, and a community with trust in the media that has been eroded. So in as much as you think there should be more interaction between communities and the media itself, but given how the pool is getting smaller, that's going to be difficult, and it's just something that needs to be worked on, and I guess editors and newsrooms must find ways of engaging communities so that they deal with the trust issues that the community has.
Samkelo Mokhine, good to have your time. Thank you very much for your time today.